He didn't even let me finish my first sip of coffee. Edwin Walsh stood in my office doorway like he owned the place. Arms crossed, chin up with that smug look young guys get when they think they've outsmarted their old man. His suit was charcoal gray, expensive, probably cost more than most of my dock workers make in a month. The kind of fit that screams money, but no real work experience. "Howard," he said, not bothering with good morning or anything decent. "We're letting you go, effective immediately. My name is Howard Pierce. I'm 49 years old. I live in Baltimore, Maryland, in a house I bought when my son Charles was 12, and I still thought I could balance being a single dad with building a business from scratch. Until this exact moment, I was the founder and CEO of Atlantic Maritime Logistics, a port operations and supply chain technology company that keeps goods flowing through East Coast ports and makes sure American shipping stays in American hands." I set my mug down real slow. The coffee was still steaming, black as crude oil, just the way I learned to drink it during 18 years in the Navy. Taught me to appreciate simple things done right, especially when you're managing logistics operations that could make or break entire shipping schedules. "Excuse me," I said. He shifted his weight but kept that practiced confidence. The board decided to move in a new direction. "We need leadership that aligns with our digital transformation strategy." All that business school talk, I almost laughed. This from a 28-year-old Stanford MBA who couldn't tell the difference between a container crane and a cargo manifest when he walked through our doors 6 months ago. The kid had spent his first week asking our port engineers what TEU capacity meant. Now he was standing in my office talking about strategy. "And who authorized this decision?" I asked, leaning back in my chair, calm, measured. "The way you talk when you already know the answer but want to hear them say it out loud." "I did," he said. "I'm the acting CEO now. That gives me full discretion over personnel decisions." Acting CEO, Edwin Walsh. Fresh out of business school where they hand out degrees like participation trophies. Before joining us, he worked at McKinsey for 2 years, which is a fancy way of saying he made PowerPoint presentations telling other people how to run their businesses. He got hired because his father, Thomas Walsh, owned a 13% stake in my company and had been whispering in board members' ears for the better part of 8 months. Old-fashioned nepotism dressed up as strategic consulting. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd built this company from nothing, starting in a rented warehouse near the Baltimore docks in 2010 with my business partner George Manning and a used server that hummed like a diesel generator. We'd spent our first 3 years working 80-hour weeks, living on coffee and determination, building logistics software that could handle the chaos of modern port operations while keeping everything secure and American-controlled. Now this kid who'd never spent a day working the docks, never seen what happens when a port shuts down because some bureaucrat in Washington decides to outsource critical operations to the lowest bidder, was telling me I didn't fit the company's vision. "You don't have the authority to remove a founding officer," I said. "That requires a formal board resolution in writing." He smiled. "Cold as a February morning on the Chesapeake Bay. The board's already aligned. This isn't up for debate." I stood up, all 6 feet 1 inch of me, shoulders square, the way they taught us at Naval Station Great Lakes 30 years ago. He straightened like he thought I might take a swing at him. I didn't. I'm not 25 anymore. And I learned a long time ago that the best fights are won with your brain, not your fists. Instead, I picked up my phone and slid it into my jacket pocket, grabbed my keys from the desk. Silence. He wasn't expecting that. Through the glass walls of my office, I could see the main floor where 165 good people were pretending to work while watching this drama unfold. Engineers, logistics coordinators, port liaison specialists. Most of them had been with us for years. Some had followed me here from other companies. All of them trusted that I'd never let them down. "Understood," I said. His eyebrows went up just a fraction. Kid thought he'd get drama, maybe some begging, definitely some pushing back. Instead, I walked past him without another word down the hallway, past the conference rooms where we'd planned operations for major shipping lines, past the break area where someone had put up a banner celebrating our contract renewal with Eastern Seaboard Shipping. The elevator ride down felt longer than usual. Funny how time stretches when your world shifts underneath you. Not that I was panicking. 18 years in the Navy teaches you to stay calm when things go sideways. And I had a feeling this was about to get very sideways indeed. I walked through the lobby without stopping. Susan Rodriguez at the front desk looked up with concern in her eyes, but I just nodded and kept walking. No point making a scene. Not yet, anyway. My truck was in the same spot it had been for 13 years, reserved parking with my name painted on the concrete barrier. I got in, closed the door, and sat there for a minute with the engine off, hands on the steering wheel. The parking garage was quiet, except for the hum of fluorescent lights and the distant sound of container ships moving through Baltimore Harbor. That's when I reached into my briefcase and pulled out my laptop. I connected to my phone's hotspot and waited for everything to load. Took about 15 seconds. First thing I pulled up was the company charter, the original one I wrote myself in a coffee shop near the Inner Harbor back in 2010 with George Manning. We were both starting over then, me fresh out of the Navy, George tired of working for shipping companies that cut corners on everything that mattered. Back then, most port operations were still using systems that belonged in the 1980s. Paper manifests, manual coordination, no real-time tracking. The big shipping lines were starting to modernize, but the smaller operations that actually moved the goods, they figured if it worked for their fathers, it would work for them. They were wrong. Dead wrong. And George and I knew it. I scrolled down to Section 6, subsection C. There it was, highlighted in yellow, because I'd flagged it 14 months ago when George told me he wanted to retire and move to Florida with his wife Dorothy. No founding officer may be removed from their position without a 2/3 majority vote of the board, documented in writing and delivered with 30 days advance notice. Edwin hadn't given me 30 days. Hell, he hadn't given me 30 minutes. I took a screenshot, opened a new email, and typed in the addresses of all 7 board members. Subject line, immediate review required. Charter violation. Body 1 sentence. Refer to Section 6C. I'll be in the office tomorrow at 9 a.m. sharp to discuss next steps. Hit send. Then I opened the file I kept updated every quarter like clockwork. Equity distribution. Every stock transfer, every option exercised, every share bought and sold. George had owned 35% when we started. By the time he left, he was down to 22% after we brought in outside investors and issued employee stock options. He sold me his shares for $2.4 million, fair market value, because he trusted me to keep the company true to what we'd built. After George left, I kept acquiring pieces whenever the opportunity came up. Board members who wanted to diversify their portfolios, early investors who got nervous about maritime regulations, employees who needed cash for their kids' college tuition. I never pressured anyone, never played hardball, just made fair offers when people were ready to sell. Took me 6 years of patient buying one small chunk at a time. Thomas Walsh had been one of those early investors. Came in during our Series A funding round in 2013 with $2.1 million when we needed capital to expand our East Coast operations. His 13% stake had grown nicely over the years. The company was worth about $82 million now, which made his shares worth roughly $10.66 million. Not bad for a $201 million investment, but here's what Thomas Walsh didn't know, and what his son Edwin definitely didn't know. By the time Edwin walked into my office this morning, I owned 87% of Atlantic Maritime Logistics. 87%. Not 80, not 85, 87. I stared at the number on my laptop screen. In the business world, anything over 51% gives you control. Anything over 67% gives you supermajority powers. 87% minus, that's nuclear level control. That's the ability to change the corporate charter, remove board members, sell the company, or do pretty much anything else you want without asking anyone's permission. I closed the laptop and started the engine. My phone rang before I even backed out of the parking space. Patricia Coleman, my attorney since day one. She didn't waste time with pleasantries. I just saw the email. What happened? Edwin Walsh fired me this morning. No board vote, no documentation. Just walked in and said I was done. That's bold and stupid. Very, you want me to draft a response? Not yet. Let them sweat. I'll handle the board meeting tomorrow, she paused. I could hear her tapping a pen against her desk the way she did when she was thinking through legal angles. Patricia had been practicing corporate law for 28 years, most of it representing small business owners who got pushed around by bigger companies or crooked partners. She understood the game. Howard, 87% is nuclear-level ownership. You know that, right? I do. You could dissolve the entire board tomorrow if you wanted. Replace every single member. Hell, you could change the company's articles of incorporation without asking anyone. I know. Are you going to? I pulled into traffic, squinting against the late afternoon sun reflecting off the harbor. Baltimore was changing fast these days. Lots of tech companies moving in, but the shipping business was still strong. Container operations, automotive imports, grain exports, all of them potential clients, all of them needing someone who understood both technology and maritime operations. I'm going to do what needs to be done, I said. That's what I figured. Call me if you need anything. And Howard? Yeah. Don't let them see you coming. The rest of the afternoon passed quietly. I didn't go home. Instead, I drove to a coffee shop in Federal Hill, the kind of place where they play jazz just loud enough to drown out conversations, and nobody bothers you if you sit in the corner with a laptop for 4 hours. I ordered a black coffee and found a table near the back, pulled up every document I'd need for tomorrow's board meeting. The charter, equity reports, emails between George and me when we restructured ownership after his retirement, board meeting minutes from the last 18 months, everything that proved Edwin Walsh had overstepped his authority and violated corporate governance. I organized it all into one folder and uploaded it to our secure server. Then I printed 3 hard copies at the coffee shop's business center. Old school maybe, but paper doesn't crash when you need it most. And there's something satisfying about slapping documents down on a conference table when people think they've outsmarted you. Around 5 p.m., my phone buzzed with a text from Edwin. Just to confirm, we'll have your final paycheck processed by end of week. Please return all company property by Friday. I stared at the message for a long moment. Kid really thought it was over. Really thought he'd won. Probably already planning his first all-hands meeting as the new CEO. Talking about digital transformation and operational efficiency and all the other buzzwords they teach in business school. I didn't reply. Let him think what he wanted to think. He'd find out the truth tomorrow morning. Another text came through around 6 p.m. This one from Harold Foster, the old-timer on our board. Former Navy like me, spent 25 years managing shipping operations in Norfolk before retiring. Harold understood what real port work looked like. He also understood what happened when you put profit margins ahead of operational security. Howard just saw your email. We need to talk. Call me. I called him immediately. He picked up on the first ring, and I could hear the sound of a TV in the background. Harold never could stay completely retired. He was probably watching the shipping reports on Bloomberg, keeping track of container volumes and freight rates. What the hell is going on over there? He asked. Edwin fired me this morning. No vote, no notice, no documentation. Just walked in and told me I was done. Son of a... I heard the TV shut off. He can't do that. Board governance 101. I know. Question is, does he know? Kid's been asking questions for weeks about executive powers, operational control, that kind of stuff. I thought Thomas was just trying to educate him about how boards work. Now I'm thinking they were planning this. That made sense. Thomas Walsh was smart money, the kind of investor who did his homework and played the long game. Problem was, he'd apparently forgotten to do his homework on one crucial detail, exactly how much of the company I owned. Harold, did you know about the container backup at Port of Virginia last month? The one where their whole operation went down for 5 days? Yeah, I heard. Cost them about $15 million in penalties and lost contracts. Edwin wanted to bid on their recovery consulting work, wanted to subcontract the actual logistics coordination to some outfit in Singapore. Save money, he said. Be more competitive. Harold was quiet for a moment, then, Jesus, you can't outsource port security operations. Half these facilities handle defense contractor shipments. There are federal regulations. That's what I told him. Kid looked at me like I was speaking a foreign language. You know what this is really about, don't you? Harold's voice had that edge to it, the one he probably used when some young engineer tried to cut corners on safety protocols. Thomas sees dollar signs. Thinks he can streamline operations, cut costs, maybe flip the company to one of those big consulting firms in a couple years. I hadn't thought about it that way, but it made perfect sense. Rip out the expensive American expertise, outsource the technical work to whoever bid lowest, turn Atlantic Maritime into a middleman operation that looked good on paper but couldn't actually handle a real crisis. What do you need from me tomorrow? Harold asked. Just show up, 9 a.m. conference room. B, I'll handle the rest. You're not going to burn the place down, are you? I smiled even though he couldn't see it. Only if I have to. After I hung up with Harold, I sat in the coffee shop for another hour, thinking through the board dynamics, 7 members total. Harold was solid. We'd worked together on 3 different companies over the years, and he understood what Atlantic Maritime meant to American shipping security. Barbara Stevens was the wild card, former CFO of a logistics company, sharp as a razor, but focused on numbers above everything else. If I could show her that Edwin's plan would kill profitability, she'd flip. Walter Brooks was newer to the board, brought in 8 months ago when we expanded, retired Coast Guard, understood maritime security. He wouldn't support outsourcing port operations to foreign contractors. Not when it involved protecting American shipping infrastructure. The problem was Carol Foster and Linda Williams. Both had come in with Thomas Walsh, part of his investor group. Foster ran some kind of management consulting firm. Williams had made her money in tech before moving into investing. Both of them talked a good game about efficiency and modernization, but neither had ever worked in maritime operations. They didn't understand that when port systems go down, entire supply chains collapse. That left Patricia Rodriguez, our employee representative. She'd been with us for 6 years, started as a junior coordinator, worked her way up to senior logistics manager. Patricia knew exactly what Edwin's outsourcing plan would mean for the 165 people whose livelihoods depended on Atlantic Maritime staying American-owned and American-operated. By the time I left the coffee shop, it was getting dark. I drove home slowly, taking the long way through downtown Baltimore. The city had changed a lot since I moved here in 2010. More tech companies, more startups, more young professionals in expensive suits talking on phones. But the bones of the place were still maritime, still working class, still the kind of place where people understood that moving cargo mattered. When I pulled into my driveway, I sat there for a moment looking at the house. It wasn't much to look at from the outside, standard 1990s construction, 3 bedrooms, 2-car garage, but it was paid off and it was mine, just like the company was mine, even if Edwin Walsh and his father didn't know it yet. I went inside and heated up leftover pizza from the weekend. While I was eating, my phone rang. Charles, calling from Johns Hopkins. "Dad, I heard something happened at work today. You okay?" Word travels fast in the maritime world, especially when it involves a company founder getting fired by a board member's kid. Someone on our engineering team probably had a friend who had a friend who went to school with Charles. "I'm fine, son." "How'd you hear about it?" Tommy Martinez's older brother works at Eastern Seaboard. Said there was some drama at Atlantic Maritime. Something about Edwin Walsh taking over. I should have figured. Eastern Seaboard Shipping was one of our biggest clients, a container operation that employed about 800 people in the port district. We'd been managing their logistics coordination for 7 years, ever since they got hit by a cyber attack that could have shut down their entire operation. "It's complicated, Charles. I'll explain everything when I see you this weekend." "Dad," he paused, and I could hear the concern in his voice. "You built that company. You and Mr. Manning. Edwin can't just take it away from you." "No," I said, looking out the kitchen window at the backyard where I'd taught Charles to throw a spiral 12 years ago. "He can't. Need me to come home? I can drive down tonight, stay in school, focus on your engineering finals. This will all be sorted out by tomorrow." After I hung up with Charles, I poured myself a beer and sat on the back deck. The night was cool, and I could smell salt air from the harbor. Somewhere in the distance, a foghorn echoed across the water. I didn't think about tomorrow. Didn't rehearse what I'd say or plan out my strategy. I already knew what I was going to do. Instead, I just sat there in the quiet, letting the weight of 13 years settle on my shoulders. I woke up at 5:30 the next morning. No alarm needed. My body just knew. Made coffee, scrambled eggs, toast with butter, sat at the kitchen table reading the news on my tablet while I ate. Nothing about maritime security or shipping disruptions, just politics and sports and celebrity gossip. The world had no idea that in 3 hours, the future of American port logistics might change forever. By 7:30, I was showered, dressed in my best Navy suit and driving toward downtown Baltimore. Traffic was light. I pulled into the parking garage at 8:45, parked in my old spot. The nameplate was still there, H. Pierce, CEO. I grabbed my briefcase and headed up. The elevator ride felt different this time. Not like yesterday's descent into uncertainty. More like climbing towards something that had been inevitable from the moment Edwin Walsh walked into my office and thought he could erase 13 years of work with a single conversation. Conference room B was already occupied when I arrived at 8:58. Edwin sat at the head of the table like he owned it, wearing a Navy suit that probably cost more than most of our dock coordinators made in a month. Thomas Walsh sat to his right, stone-faced and formal. The rest of the board was scattered around, Harold near the windows, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. Barbara Stevens with her tablet and legal pad, taking notes on everything. Walter Brooks studying some documents. Carol Foster and Linda Williams sitting together, Clearly Team Walsh. Patricia Rodriguez in the corner, nervous energy radiating off her. I walked in at exactly 9 a.m. Didn't knock, didn't ask permission, just pushed the door open and strode to the opposite end of the table. Set down my briefcase with enough force that everyone looked up. "Good morning," I said. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice." Edwin leaned back in his chair trying to project confidence. "Howard, I appreciate you wanting to discuss the transition, but as I mentioned yesterday, the decision has been made, has it?" I opened my briefcase and pulled out the folders. Because according to our corporate charter, Section 6, subsection C, no founding officer may be removed without a 2/3 majority board vote, documented in writing, with 30 days advance notice. I slid copies of the charter across the table. "You gave me none of those things, Edwin, which means yesterday's termination was not only inappropriate, it was illegal under Maryland corporate law." Thomas Walsh finally spoke, his voice calm and measured. "Howard, we understand you're upset, but Edwin has full authority as acting CEO to make personnel decisions. Acting CEO appointed by whom?" I looked around the table. "Show me the board resolution. Show me the documented vote that gave him that authority." Silence. Carol Foster shifted in her seat. Linda Williams was suddenly very interested in her coffee cup. Harold cleared his throat. "Thomas, did the board actually vote on Edwin's appointment? Because I don't remember that meeting." "It was understood," Thomas said, "given our strategic direction discussions." "Understood by whom?" Walter Brooks leaned forward. "Because corporate governance doesn't work on understandings. It works on documented decisions." I knew I had them. Time to play my ace card. "There's something else you should all know," I said. I opened the second folder and pulled out the equity distribution report. "Before we discuss Edwin's authority or lack thereof, let's talk about company ownership." I placed the document in the center of the table. "As of yesterday morning, I own 87% of Atlantic Maritime Logistics." The room went dead quiet. Barbara Stevens picked up the paper, scanned it, and her eyes went wide. She passed it to Harold, who looked at it and whistled low under his breath. 87%, I repeated. "Acquired legally over the past 6 years through fair market transactions with willing sellers. Every purchase properly documented and filed with the state." Edwin's face had gone pale. "That's impossible. Is it? When's the last time you actually looked at the equity reports? Edwin, when's the last time your father looked?" Thomas Walsh snatched the document from Harold's hands, studied it for a long moment, then slowly set it down. His expression had shifted from confident to something that looked a lot like panic. "This changes nothing," Carol Foster said, but her voice lacked conviction. "The board still has oversight responsibility." "The board serves at the pleasure of the shareholders," I said. "And the primary shareholder is sitting right here." Patricia Rodriguez spoke up for the first time. "What does this mean for the employees?" I turned to her. "It means no outsourcing to Singapore. No layoffs to cut costs. No compromising American port security for short-term profits." Harold stood up. "All right, let's make this official." I moved to reverse Howard Pierce's termination and restore his position as CEO of Atlantic Maritime Logistics. "Seconded," Walter Brooks said immediately. "All in favor," Harold called. Hands went up around the table. Harold, Walter, Barbara, Patricia, 4 out of 7. I looked at the others. "Carol, Linda, you're both smart business people. You understand what 87% ownership means." Carol Foster raised her hand reluctantly. Then Linda Williams, 6 votes. Edwin slammed his palm on the table. "This is ridiculous. You can't just motion carries," Harold interrupted. "Howard, you're officially reinstated as CEO." Edwin looked at his father, waiting for support that never came. Thomas Walsh was staring at the equity report, like it might change if he looked at it long enough. "Fine," Edwin said, standing up so fast his chair rolled backward. "You can have your little company, but you're making a mistake. American Maritime is dying. Outsourcing is the future." "Maybe," I said, "but not on my watch." He stormed out, leaving the door open behind him. Thomas Walsh followed a moment later, pausing only to look back at me with something that might have been respect. After they left, the remaining board members sat in silence for a moment. Then Barbara Stevens started laughing. Quiet at first, then louder. 87%, she said, shaking her head. "You've been playing chess while they were playing checkers. I just protected what we built," I said. 2 weeks later, I was in my office when Patricia Coleman called. "Thomas Walsh wants to sell his shares," she said. "All 13%. His lawyer called this morning. What's he asking? 10.66 million ver. Fair market value. I leaned back in my chair. If I bought those shares, I'd own 95% of the company, 95%. Make the offer, I said. A month after that, Charles called from Johns Hopkins. Dad, I've been thinking about that internship next summer. Is the offer still open? I looked out the window of my office. Down on the street, I could see workers heading into the port district. People who depended on companies like ours to keep cargo moving. Their jobs secure, their communities alive. The offer's open, I said. But you should know we're not just running a business anymore. We're protecting American infrastructure. I know, Dad. That's why I want to be part of it. That's when I knew we'd won. Not just the battle with Edwin Walsh, but something bigger. Something that would last long after I was gone. Sometimes the best revenge is just refusing to lose. I learned something that day that every man past 45 knows but rarely says out loud. Real power isn't about the title on your door or the size of your office. It's about understanding the game well enough to change the rules when someone tries to cheat you out of what you've earned. When you've spent decades building something with your own hands, you learn that patience isn't just a virtue, it's a weapon that cuts deeper than any angry word ever could. The smartest move you can make when someone underestimates you is to let them keep thinking they're the smartest person in the room, right up until the moment you prove them wrong.